Sometimes using React, Angular, or Vue.js may be an overkill if we have to develop a simple web application. JQuery is a small and fast JavaScript library created in 2006 that makes dead simple to do things like event handling, animations, Ajax calls, and DOM manipulations. Some of the most used DOM manipulation jQuery methods is what we are going to cover in this video today. Let's get started. In order to use jQuery, we need to include the jQuery library as part of the source attribute of the script tag. I am using the jQuery version 3.4.1. And jQuery requires the DOM to be completely rendered in the browser before starting running any jQuery methods. So that's why I added this piece of code here that basically indicates that once the document is ready, that means it's completely loaded. Now we can start running our jQuery methods. Let's see a really simple example. Here I added a link. So I'm going to create a simple event using a jQuery method. The $sign is our way to access the jQuery library. So here I'm going to use an element selector, in this case the A tag, that is actually how we include links in a document. And what I'm going to do here is when someone clicks on this link, I'm going to execute a function, and I'm going to do a console log of a message. Let's save this. I'm going to click on the link, and as we can see in the console, we are showing the message. Let's start doing some more interesting things to manipulate our HTML document. So the first jQuery method that we are going to use is the HTML method. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a div here. I'm going to assign a class to it. And I'm going to add a paragraph within that div. I'm going to add some text to the paragraph. Okay, and the HTML method works like this. Essentially, with this method, you get the HTML contents of the first element in the set of matched elements. How do we match the elements? In this case, we are going to use the class. So I can do something like this. $sign, that's the way that we have access to the jQuery library. And we're going to use the class selector div.container. And we're going to call the HTML method here. I'm going to do a console log to see the output of this HTML method. Let's save this. And as you can see here, we get the HTML contents of the div that has the class name container. Another thing that we can do with the HTML method is assigning a content, for example, to this div. I'm going to remove the content. I'm going to remove this console.log, and I'm going to pass this content as a string to the HTML function. I'm going to save this. Let's inspect the HTML document. And as you can see now, the div of class container includes this paragraph. That is actually this HTML code that we assign here as an argument. Okay, let's move this back to the div, and let's remove this. Now what we are going to do is, using another function called text, let's add some text here. Text1, let's copy this. Text2, text3, let's create a div inside this div and add some more text, div2. And this method, what it's going to do is going to return all the text that is within this container. In this case, the div with class named container. This method will not return the HTML, just the text that we have for each tag. In this case, we'll return text1, text2, text3, and div2. So let's console log this. Console.log. And as we can see, we get all the text that is included in the child elements of the div, which class is container. Okay, let's change this a little bit. Let's create a list. With 3 elements. What we can do with the text method is we can pass a function here that is going to have the index as an argument, and we are going to return for each index. This index is going to be each child of the parent element. Now I'm going to change the parent element. I can do something like this, ul li, and here I'm going to return item number plus index. I'm going to add space here, and as you can see, we get the text for each of these elements. Okay, there is another method for DOM manipulation called attr, and will allow us to access and manipulate attributes of the HTML tags. So for example, if I want to access the href value of this element, I can do something like this. Let href_val equals $a attr href, and I'm going to console.log that value, and we get, in this case, this symbol. If we put a URL, for example, www.google.com, if we save this, we get that URL as the value of the attribute href of the A tag that we have on our web page. Another thing that we can do using the attr method is assign a value to the tag attribute. In this case, we can do something like this. http www.yahoo.com, and if we read the href attribute from the link tag, we're going to get the new value that we assigned here. We can also use the remove attr to remove an attribute. So let's remove the href attribute from the link. I'm going to remove this, and what I'm going to do is $a that remove attr, and we remove the href attribute. I'm going to assign the value of the attribute here. And as we can see, we get undefined because it was removed from the tag. If we inspect the HTML, we can see that the A tag does not include the href attribute anymore. Now let's use another JQuery method, but first let's create a select. Let's add some options. So let's say that we want to get the value that was selected from that list. So I'm going to create a variable named selection. And first I need to add an ID to this select. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select that element by ID with hashtag NDID, and I'm going to use the function val. I'm going to log the selection, and I'm going to get dog by default. And in order to make it dynamic and refresh this value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple function here. And I'm going to use the change event of the select to call that function and display the new selection. And here I need to pass the name of the function that I'm going to call. So the first time I'm going to print dog, that is the default value, and when I change the selection, I'm going to print the new selection, in this case cat. I can also assign a value to the selection, so I'm going to remove this. I need to use a function for this. And in this case, I'm going to return cat. I'm going to save this. I'm going to change. I'm going to refresh. And as you can see, we get cat selected. I'm going to change cat by dog. I'm going to replace that value. It's going to refresh, and now we have dog selected. These are some of the most important methods that jQuery provides to manipulate the HTML DOM easily. This is Enrique with pragmaticreviews.com signing off. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and I see you guys later. Take care.